In this series of videos, we'll take a look at LPC-Live 2, which is our new MIDI remote script for Ableton Live 9 and the Novation Launchpad. LPC-Live 2 is actually compatible with all three Launchpad models, the original Launchpad, the Launchpad S, and the Launchpad Mini. LPC-Live 2 is not an updated version of LPC-Live, which was our previous product for the Launchpad. It's a completely different product, so we'll be going through the entire feature set in this video series. Installing LPC-Live 2 is very straightforward. After purchasing, you'll be forwarded to a download page where you can download a zip file. Within that zip file, you'll find an OS X and Windows installer. In this example, I'm just going to show you the Windows installer, but the OS X installer is essentially identical. The installer just requires that you accept a license agreement, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is automatic. You'll notice there's also a Max for Live device here, and we'll look at what that does in just a little bit. I just want to make it clear that LPC-Live 2 does not require Max for Live. It'll function perfectly fine without it. However, if you do own Max for Live, you'll likely find this device to be very useful. But again, it's purely optional. It's not a requirement for using LPC-Live 2. After installing, you'll need to do some initial setup in Live. You'll do this all in Preferences on the MIDI Sync tab. You'll select LPC-Live 2 as a control surface, and you'll select the Launchpad model you're using as the input and output. You'll also need to turn on the track switch for LPC-Live 2 input and LPC-Live 2 output. LPC-Live 2 includes a user preferences file that gives you some options in terms of how the script should work. We'll come back to this as we're going through the feature set, but to give you a couple examples, by default, when you're using a mode related to playing instruments, LPC-Live 2 will automatically arm tracks for you. This option allows you to turn that functionality off. As another example, LPC-Live 2 includes a variety of modes. This option here allows you to choose the default mode, the one that will be selected when you initially load up a set. LPC-Live 2 also includes a skin file. This allows you to specify the LED colors to use for every button in every mode, so you can completely customize the LED colors to suit your needs. This is especially useful in the case of colorblind or partially colorblind users. In addition to a typical user manual, a live lesson is also supplied, and this provides a graphical reference of what every button does in every mode. LPC-Live 2 makes heavy use of Live's status bar. That's the bar at the bottom of Live's window. This gives you information on which page or mode is selected, and it also gives you information on settings. For example, if I change some scale settings, the new settings will be shown here. As we saw earlier, LPC-Live 2 comes with a Max for Live device, so let's now take a look at what that does. The name of this device is LPC-Live 2 OSD, or On-Screen Display. As the name implies, this gives you on-screen information about what's going on in LPC-Live 2. This device provides two different displays. An info display, this gives you information about the settings of the current mode or page, as well as a map display, which shows what each button does in the current mode or page. And these of course both update as you change settings and switch between modes and pages. To give you an example, I'll switch to the device mode, which allows you to control parameters of the selected device. You can see here the info display gives you information on the device being controlled. Most importantly, it lists the names and values of all the parameters being controlled. Quite a few Max for Live devices have been created for the Launchpad, and many of these are set up to work with the default Launchpad control surface that's included with Live, so they won't work with LPC-Live 2. To accommodate that and allow you to continue using those sorts of devices, we've included surface switching functionality. This allows you to switch between LPC-Live 2 and the default Launchpad control surface where you can utilize those devices. To set that up, you first need to go into the User Preferences file. Here you'll find an Enable Surface Switch option, and you'll set that to True. Next, in Live's Preferences, you'll select the Launchpad as a control surface, with the Launchpad model you're using as the input and output. With these settings in place, you'll now be able to switch between the two control surfaces. Here LPC-Live 2 is active. I'll enter the Mode Select page, which we'll cover in detail in a future video, and double tap the User 1 button. Now the Launchpad control surface is active, so I can access Session Mode, Mixer Mode, and the two user modes. You can see here if I switch to User Mode 2, I can now use this Max for Live device. In the subsequent videos in this series, we'll take a look at the features available in LPC-Live 2. I just want to point out that LPC-Live 2 is pretty rich in terms of features. Alright, there's lots of different things it can do. However, you don't need to concern yourself with every feature that LPC-Live offers. You simply need to learn the ones that apply to you and that would benefit you. Also, just like with any other software of relative complexity, don't try to learn all the features in one sitting. Take things one step at a time, integrate the features you need into your workflow, And before you know it, using LPC Live 2 will be second nature.